Connor Gale. I'm with the Old Brooklyn CDC. My roles revolve a lot more around housing and helping first-time homebuyers, doing some of our project management with some of the homes that we actually rehab and flip in house, or do some of our senior rehab programs. We're have our hand in so many things as an organization. So I have several flyers over here, but the main thing I want to kind of make sure you all know about is we've got a raffle for an e-bike. Tickets are 1 for $30, 2 for $50. The e-bike has a value of like $1,600. It's foldable, so it can fit in most trunks. We have our Street Fest coming up in October, and then our Old Brooklyn Night, which is going to be at the zoo this year. Tickets are on sale for that. We also have a virtual 50-50. You do not have to be there to win the 50-50 or the bike. So if your ticket is called, they'll just, and you're not there, they'll give you a call later on. But we're excited to see you tonight. And if you have any questions, just give me a holler. Thanks.
Cool. Any questions for him right now?
Any now?
No. Cool. All right. It's 6 o'clock. You good? Okay. So like I said, I asked John to record this because I want to be able to put this on social media. I think this is going to be helpful for some of our neighbors. And is there anything burning urgent before we get into a discussion of property taxes and property valuations that went out? Can we just get into it? Okay, cool. So did everybody get their property valuations in the mail, what their new property values are? No, new neighbor. I got mine. Mine went up 40% roughly. My property value went up 40. I put it into the county's calculator. My taxes went up 13%. I wanted to, for the benefit of everybody, kind of explain a little bit about how the county collects taxes on your property value. Because I think a lot of people, they hear 40% increase in property value, they expect a 40% increase in property taxes. That's not how it works. So I want to share this with you because I just think it's interesting. So for the purpose of demonstrating, we're going to say that your house is worth $100,000 even. It's a round number, easy to work with, okay? First off, the county only taxes 35% of the value of your house, which is crazy, right? They take 65% of the value of your house, they throw it away, and they only tax you on 35%. So if you have a $100,000 house, you're only being taxed on $35,000. All right, that's everybody across the board. That's just how they do it. I don't know why or how or who came up with this idea, but that's the way it's been done for as long as I've understood anything about taxes. A mill is 1/1000 because mill is the prefix for millionth, and in the metric system or something, 1,000 is a millionth or whatever. So we'll roll with this. So 1 mil, 1/1000 of 35,000 is $35. So for the case we're going to use, the scenario we're going to use, a $100,000 house, 1 mil is $35. Does that make sense? Have we got there? Everybody good? Okay. There's something called an inside mill and an outside mill. The inside mill is the millage that the state of Ohio allows government to collect for basic operation. The state capped it at 10 mills, okay? Government can only collect 10 inside mills. So everybody on a $100,000 house is going to pay $350 a half. Sorry, taxes are assessed twice a year. I should have backed that up. Hey, come on. Taxes are assessed twice a year. So I guess they're really taxing you at 70% of the value of your house over the course of the year. Maybe that's why they do 35%, because it does away with discrepancies. But anyway, if a mill is $35 and your 10 inside mill are $350, right? And that's collected twice a year. Your taxes on this house minimum are going to be $700 a year. Does that make sense? Okay. This goes up when this goes up. Okay? Because this inside mill is tied to the actual value of your house. So if your house goes up to $200,000 and 1 mil becomes $70, your 10 mills are going to be $700 or $1,400 a year, because this is a half. Does that make sense? So when the value of your house goes up, mine went up 40%, my inside mill went up 40%. However, operating levies are handled entirely different, and the majority of the taxes you pay on your property value are operating levies. CMSD is like 60% of all property taxes. CMSD collects an operating levy, okay? the county libraries, Health and Human Services, Metro Parks, thank you.
Libraries.
Yep, the county libraries. Tri-C, yes. They all have operating levies. An operating levy does not work off the value of your house, okay? Operating levies are designed to raise X amount of dollars. Whatever that number is, it's on the ballot when you read it, okay? If it passes, they take that dollar amount and divide it by the number of parcels that are paying into it, and then do the math backwards to figure out how many mills you pay for your portion of that operating levy, okay? When the value of your house goes up, they don't get to keep collecting the same millage on you because they're only collecting the X dollar amount. They actually lower your millage to readjust the amount you pay to that operating levy back down so that they collect the same amount. This was done about 15 years ago. This is sort of a newer state law in Columbus when some legislators decided that property values going up shouldn't cause your taxes to go up, okay? So they passed this statewide law so that operating levies do not benefit from increased property values. They just readjust the millage that you're paying to cover your portion of that levy. Does that make sense? That's why ultimately when your property value goes up 40%, your taxes don't go up 40%. The majority of our taxes are for operating levies, and they can't take more money from us than what the voters approved them to collect in operating fees, okay? Does you have questions? Because that's kind of like, you know, I paid a lot of money and spent 40 hours in real estate class just to learn that. That's all of it, I just explained it all, that's all there was, that's all it is, right, okay. So, the other thing that I want to couple this with, I just Googled this tonight. I said, what is the median housing price in Old Brooklyn, Ohio? Huh? Rent or the value of a house?
Oh, the value of the house?
Yeah, let's do this. This will be fun before I put it up there. The median. So median, by the way, if you forget, median means the price in the middle. Half the prices are lower and half the prices are higher. This isn't average where you add them all together and divide by the number.
180.
180? What? 130? 112?
150.
You can say 100.
Huh?
100.
100,000? According to Redfin, who collects data on home values throughout the country, the median price of homes in Old Brooklyn, Cleveland, Ohio, is $172,000.
You get a cookie.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Yes, he got it.
You got houses right over here on Searsville that went for $350,000.
Oh.
Searsville. How?
House on
They're
the house.
brand new.
They're brand new.
Brand new.
That's right. House across the street from me listed 260, sold 280 over the weekend. Right?
286.
Huh?
286.
286. Okay, thank you for keeping me honest. This should make us proud. This is good. I spent years, and still do, trolling message boards where property investors share information about investment strategies. There's one called Deeper Pockets or Bigger Pockets, I forget. There's a couple other one, Magic Bricks or something like that. Investors don't want to buy houses in neighborhoods that are high value because the return on their investment is bad, right? You're not gonna buy a $300,000 house to rent, right? When I first discovered this sort of math that they used 8 years ago, the number was 100,000. They wouldn't buy over 100. At the time, I was the housing director in the stockyards in Clark Fulton, and I knew that was really bad because the median house price in the stockyards at the time was like 42,000 or something. It was like well below 100. And the stockyards were riddled with bad investors buying up properties as much as they could. But investors so they will look where the median values are low because that's where they can get the biggest turnaround for their investment dollar. But there's a price point at which they stop and they don't want to buy that. And I figured it was about 150. I figured it's about 150 now. They had a nice round number at 100,000 that they used for a long time. And those days have gone and the price of housing goes up over time. So I figure around 150. And I'm not going to call Redfin exact science, but seeing 172 is really encouraging because we know one of the biggest problems in the neighborhood is shoddy out-of-town investors buying up properties, not caring about the community, their own tenants, or the welfare of the people on the street. They just buy, they rent, they phone everything in, and they drag down quality of life because I've almost completed my housing survey. 90% of the time they're the worst houses on the street. You go down almost any block, see the worst house on your block, probably the rental, right? And that also hurts our good landlords. We have a lot of good local investors who actually do responsible work, and they're getting hurt because out-of-town investors purchase cash, waiving inspections. They're not competitive in this market. They're from I just got an email from somebody from California the other day mad at me because I sent them a letter telling them that they needed to paint their porch. It was like really bad. And she called around and found out that to do a proper job it was going to cost her some money. And she said, my husband and I wanted to provide affordable rentals in Cleveland, but I guess if we have to do this, it's going to hurt our ability to be affordable. And I was like, you should not bring down the quality of life for everybody in the neighborhood. I did my thing. I said, you live in a $1.4 million house in California. Congratulations on your success. Don't drag down my neighborhood because you want to skimp on a paint job on a porch in the house, on the investment property you bought. If it's a hassle, you can sell the house, right? And I can't stand it when investors tell me that I'm hurting them. Like, this was your choice to invest in housing as a business model. Businesses come with investment costs, right? You own a house, your investment cost is maintaining that property. So the less of them we have to deal with, the better we are. The less of them we have to deal with, the more our local landlords can actually do their responsible work. And our local landlords also know the market. They know what the difference is between living here and on the other side of the zoo, and they know what the prices that they can get are. They're tied into the local economy, right? They're kind of with it. So I know that the increase in housing value is going to hurt some people, and I want to talk a little bit in a minute about what we can do to address some of those neighbors' needs and concerns, especially for our folks that are seniors that are living on very fixed incomes on Social Security, and an increase in taxes is going to actually represent a hardship for them. We'll get to that. But I want everybody to understand too that Old Brooklyn as a neighborhood in Cleveland is one of the highest median housing values in the city, right? We're up there with West Park, right? And we are still below the county's median, which shouldn't shock us, right? When you start to head southeast, you get into wealthier areas, you get into higher prices, higher property values. But what I dream of for this neighborhood is that sweet spot where we're above investor interest, but below the prices of Ohio City, Tremont, Detroit Shoreway, the $500,000, $600,000, price points that we're seeing up there that a lot of people can't quite make. The fact that houses on Roanoke are going for $300,000 new, it should make us feel good. We got it at a good time, right? We got our houses for much less than that. But that bolsters and supports the housing values, and if new houses go up for this range, this is very exciting for us. This means that we're not going to be attracted to investors, except for the local ones that know what they're doing and know how to navigate the markets in Cleveland, Ohio, right? So if it's a problem for you, I'll switch into talking about that, the new tax value, but it's good for the neighborhood. It's good for the neighborhood. And that's just something in terms of like all of us being in this together, raising housing values bodes well for our future. Questions about that?
Yeah, I have kind of a technical question.
Yeah.
So, some of these new construction houses that they've changed the tax abatement on them, have they changed it in order, if you're now contributing, you're now a part of the operating levy, tax dollars?
So an abatement, I believe, is allowed by the state to be absolute, and they're usually 15 years. And abatements are, just to be clear, in the 90s, when you wanted a mortgage, you walked into a bank, you sat down, you talked to a banker, the banker evaluated you. Hopefully it was somebody you knew in your neighborhood. And they decided whether or not to give you a loan. A bank. After they deregulated the banking industry, which started in the 80s, Clinton put the final cherry on top. It allowed consumer banks that don't have, there's consumer banks and there's, anybody know? Consumer lending and depository banks. Depository banks, thank you. Depository banks used to do all lending. Anyway, credit card companies, essentially, the banks took over the role of credit card companies and started giving everybody mortgages, and we thought we were doing a great thing. We thought everybody was getting these houses, and it was like a really good investment. People were buying properties and everything. Housing values went up through the roof because the number of buyers in the market went up, and all of a sudden you could charge all these prices because the stock didn't go up to keep up with the new number of new buyers. Housing values went up, and this, our friends, you guys know what year this is, right? Yeah, that's right. In 2008 happened, and your tax value, if any of you were homeowners in 2006-07, right? You remember what happened when your housing value plummeted in 2008 and 9, you got a big break on your taxes. Your tax bill went down, right? Because your inside millage went down, because your overall went down, right? It wasn't as noticeable because your operating levies continued to collect the same amount of tax off of you, right? But it went down a little bit based on your inside millage. So what we've done now is if had this number gone like this, right? And this is 3% annual inflation, roughly 2.5, whatever. 3% annual inflation is what you want for your house. You want your house value to go up 3% because you want the rest of inflation to be 2%. You want your investment to outpace the rest, right? This is economist wonky stuff, but we're right back here. Had none of this ever happened, our housing values, if you were to take this trajectory, are just about where this current reassessment has put housing values in Old Brooklyn. There are parts of Cleveland that are still behind, that are still below what markets should be. But we are right where we would have been had none of this nonsense ever happened. And that's the good thing, right? That kind of puts us back on the 100-year trajectory of stable, over the course of the roller coaster. That puts us back where we would have been had the shenanigans of the late 90s and early 2000s not happened. And that's probably a good thing for us too. But this is the number that I think is like, this is where we want to keep our eye on the prize as a neighborhood. And if that stays, if that holds, and we keep that up, and investors don't go crazy and start deciding that they want to invest in $200,000 houses, which I haven't seen them do yet, except for like triples and quadruples. I've seen quads out there sell for 200 to investors, getting forward rents off of it, right? This is good news for the neighborhood. Now, it doesn't solve individual problems. For seniors, it doesn't solve individual problems. For people that are struggling to keep up with these guys. But how's that sound?
What are we gonna do?
So, if your value is too high, here's what we do. If your housing value you think is still overvalued, you can contest it, okay? And everybody thinks that they need to get a professional survey. No, you don't. When they said that, what they were saying was attach whatever you want. You got a survey, you got an assessment, you got whatever you want to put in your evidence pack, throw it in here, attach it to this, and file it. You don't need a lawyer to do this. You're allowed, we have like rights, and you're allowed to contest your housing value to the Board of Revisions. It's a county thing, right? By the way, this is all handled by the county. And you can contest it. Will you be successful? I mean, yeah, I think 50-50 is the best I can do. I've gone into the Board of Revisions with pastors who were trying to get churches' values changed and stuff like that, and they said no to them. And I've gone in with homeowners who they said yes to. And I don't quite always understand their math, but I think 50-50 is my personal experience. About half the people that ask for it get some lowered valuation, and half don't. The big thing we can do is make sure that everyone over the age of 60 or 62, 65, or who has a permanent disability applies for the homestead exemption, okay?
So there's,
And an income
right there,
level.
there's no income cap on that?
Yes.
Yes.
There is. Homestead has an income cap.
36,500.
And it's not very high.
Yeah, I know, I looked at it.
It's very hard, it's hard to be under that.
Yeah. So that's the word, homestead.
You just killed my chance right
The homestead, for everybody who qualifies, I know, the homestead takes $25,000 off the value of your house before doing this. So instead of you paying 35% on a $100,000 house, you pay 35% on a $75,000 house, which gets this number down to about, 75% in this case. So it drops the price of your millage. And it saves, I'm working with a guy over by Low Park, got him on the homestead. It saved him like $700 a year, which in turn was just slightly more than his increase under the new assessment. So we got him on the homestead just in time that he's not gonna feel any difference from his housing value going up. It covered that difference. If you don't qualify for the homestead, we are working with our state delegation to try to change, this is a state, by the way, this is the state of Ohio does this, okay?
It's actually line 13 of your tax return,
Okay.
the Ohio tax return.
Okay. And we're trying to increase it from 25,000 to like 35,000 or something like that. We're trying to increase the income cap on who can qualify for it. And I thought there were three things we were trying to do. Increase income, increase the amount, maybe it's just those two, because that's what makes sense. And they're trying to get this through Columbus to enact this to provide more relief for people in the area. The other thing you can do is get the owner occupancy credit. I'll be the first one to tell you the owner occupancy credit is performative. My owner occupancy credit is like $17 a half. It's not gonna like change your life. But if you don't get your owner occupancy credit, there's no reason not to. It's, you know, $35 a year or something. I don't know what that does, but it's in your pocket. And that's it. Sorry, I didn't have a better way to wrap that up. But yes.
Not really regarding the raise, but just understanding what operating levy is. I mean, can that be considered a regressive tax, basically? Penalizing people with small properties disproportionately?
Yeah, I
I mean, you know, if a 100-acre estate is paying the same amount as a quarter-acre lot homeowner. they're both-
yeah. So this 100,000 is the value of your land combined with the value of your house.
But you're saying operating doesn't base it on value, it's just a parcel by parcel.
Yeah, that's a good question. Do they go off the
Is that-
value of the property versus the value of the acreage? There's always talk in like magazines that I don't quite understand yet about changing the formula for how they assess
Okay.
millage for operating.
I would hope it's more than just part, because that seems severely regressive.
That's a good question. I should probably have a more detailed answer, but I don't. So you're talking about this, when we
Yeah, that's all.
divide by number of parcels, are we
That's-
dividing by the parcel's total value, or are we dividing by the property, the value of the building on that? Are we dividing by the value of the land, right? I don't know.
I took that to mean just the number of parcels you own.
Oh, no.
So if you
No, I'm
own
sorry,
one parcel-
number of parcels in the county.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, in county,
Okay, and then they correct for acreage perhaps.
in Cuyahoga. So,
Okay.
there are 110,000 properties and like 170,000 parcels in Cleveland.
So there's more balancing going on.
Yeah, and so then whatever, you got all the parcels for all the other municipalities in Cuyahoga County, and then they divide and figure out how many millage each person pays to raise the operating cost. And so when your value goes up, your millage collected goes down on operating levies, because they have to refigure out what that new millage number is to get you to pay the same amount.
You have two properties, you're paying twice.
Yeah.
That's what I think that's what
Oh,
he's trying to
yeah.
get at.
Yeah,
He's like, if I have more than one property, they're not combined.
Oh, that's
So,
true, that's true.
Yeah, you're getting hit twice.
Yeah,
You're
and if
paying
you own
out
two
levy
properties, you
twice.
get two tax bills.
So I think he's also alluding to if I have $1 million home and he has a $50,000 home,
Yeah.
he's paying the same tax I'm
He's paying the same
paying,
percentage
which
you are
is-
getting.
That's
If
how
he
I
has an
took
extra
it.
property,
That's
an
how I
extra
took
yard.
that.
Yeah.
He bought the neighbors when there was no house. So yeah, he's getting it for parcel one and parcel two.
Well,
Yeah, but the
what he's
parcels then
saying
are taxed
is,
separately.
if the operating levy formula basically converts it to a fixed number. So if you owe a $10 million operating levy by 100,000 parcels, it's gonna be $100 a person. Doesn't matter whether you have a value of $1 million or you have a value of 50,000, you each owe 100.
Except, they're still assessing based on the value. Whether it's the value of the house and the land, or just the land, or just the building,
Okay.
I don't know. But I don't think it's just I guess that's a good question, I don't know,
But if it's dividing by
I
parcels,
wish
it's not.
the county treasurer were here for so long.
It has to be both.
I think it probably is both,
Yeah,
because
that is really
that would
nasty.
make sense.
If it
Because,
is.
because we always talk about how abated properties are a boon for the schools 15 years from now. Because the schools collect, and they collect off the value of the property. So I know at least the school taxes collect off the value of the property. So if you've got undeveloped land, you're paying very low taxes, right? There's your answer. Does anybody have an empty parcel? I mean, people have them, basically. Yeah, and you pay like very little on that empty parcel, right? Right, because they're not, because I don't think the millage is based on the property, the value of the land throughout the county, because the value of the building on the land. So I think we kind of handled that. Yeah, I think it's going to go off the value of the building on the land, not just the value of the land. The land is taxed at some rates, very minimal, very minimal. Yeah.
Yeah, the way the county assessed property stuff, you Google a map, it shows Cleveland went up 49%. I live in Cleveland, mine went up 68.75%.
Wow. Okay.
I Googled my property and Zillow comes up, and the county assessment is $200 more than what the Zillow says my house is worth. So I'm thinking the county just went on Zillow, and looked at all these prices, and this is what you're being charged.
I saw two ladies driving down my street, looking at my house. I do what everybody does. What's going on? And they had a sign on the magnet on the side that said property assessment. And it was two people, and they were driving, and they were looking at the houses. So how much what they saw plays into it, I don't know. Did they pull? I don't know. They pulled permitting, right? Did we pull any permits in the last? No. Okay, so if they did, it didn't matter for you.
It could be if something's sold.
It's, you
Something
know,
sold near you for 200,000, they're up there, the whole
That's
street. Like you're lucky
laissez-faire,
that house
right?
across the street, if you got the tax thing before that went through.
your house is worth what somebody's willing to pay for it.
Right, so if it's 286 across the street.
Yep.
If it would've, yours could have been different just by,
Honestly, when I got my housing value, I was like, I'm surprised they didn't go up more because the guy across the street, because some other people in the neighborhood have sold for well over 200 in our area, on our little corner. And I was kind of surprised to be under 200. I was like,
sometimes you just look at it and you're like, I'm gonna have to just suck this up, because fighting it might just bring more attention
Yeah,
to
might
the
give you
whole
a
process.
bigger-
you might have gotten good at it. Did we get you guys some chairs? Did we hire?
I know, they're right there.
All right, okay.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm not fighting my property value because I live next to the $286,000 house and mine was nowhere near that.
Okay,
So
okay.
I'm not fighting it, but my brother-in-law lives in Parma and he's fighting his.
Uh-huh.
And he's going to go to City Hall or wherever he has to go.
Downtown Lake County.
Yeah, to tell them everything that needs to be worked on his house. And what, does that mean anything? Like, if, I didn't think so, but it's like, where did he come up with this idea?
Unless
I
you
don't
don't have a
know.
roof, or you
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
have.
So
I
if
mean,
you can
you
come,
can't say my
if you can
kitchen's
come up
empty.
with valid estimates from
Yeah.
a roofer and a concrete guy and everything else,
Like
if
a
you just
garage,
show
he
up
needs
and be
to
like,
have $7,000
They have to
of
be
work
valid
done in his
estimates from the
garage, so he thinks that
contractor?
you take that as a deduction or.
I've never
I
been
want
in
a
a
contractor
BOR where
bugging
people
me when I can't
itemize
afford
why
to
they
do
think
the
their home is
repairs.
worth less than it is, and I try to itemize and say, you know, my bathroom sprung a leak and it damaged the floor, and now I'm all rotted out, because that also seems like a welcome code violation.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Parma's gonna, I don't know what the strategy is in Parma. Cleveland will not be in the room. If you go to contest your value with the county, we're not gonna have somebody over here. I mean, we're not sending somebody to the county to deal with it. I don't know if Parma's gonna do it differently. I don't know if that's gonna work or not. I really don't know.
I never heard of that.
Please
That's why
let me
I thought I
know if
would
it
ask.
does. I would like to know the outcome. Did it work or not?
Cause they could turn around and say, okay, well, what had to be repaired, upgraded,
Yeah.
and then say, we're gonna add those back.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, the county is supposed to know how many bedrooms you've got, how many bathrooms you've got, right? But do they, have any of you checked it? Is your house completely accurate?
Yeah,
You have to get, you don't have to get any permits in Cleveland.
Well, You're supposed to.
Yeah,
Supposed
you are.
You're supposed
I've been
to.
told that
The
you don't,
description online.
There are
says
some
how
things you don't
many
need permits
bedrooms and
for,
bathrooms,
like your
but it
driveway.
doesn't say what size those rooms are.
That's not always correct.
Right, sometimes they don't have the size of the room, and sometimes they're just wrong.
They drive by and go, hey, where you, McDonald's today? Yeah, look, there's,
Mine has the right number of bedrooms, but two of them are super small. And
Yeah.
none of the bedrooms in my house have a closet.
And if they're adjacent to each other, you're only a sledgehammer and 2 hours away from having one bedroom,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, did you have?
Yeah, no, I think when you purchase the house and you were titled, that's when they get all that.
That's right, that's right. And so-
So when you purchase it, but if you update it, then they don't have to update unless there's an appraisal.
That's right. And to your point,
Right.
you're supposed to pull permits, but we all know that people do stuff without permits.
I was told that there's only 2 people included, one for the east side, one for the west side. And you only come out, check you out, if somebody calls you, and they drive down the street, and they take pictures of all the people on the street, and they bill everybody there, and they go away after that. I had a dumpster sitting in my backyard doing my bathroom, throwing stuff out. Nobody approached me. I didn't
Okay.
do it. I didn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, do people do work on their houses without pulling permits? Yeah, every single day. It happens all the time, right? And do people get caught working on their house without a permit? Yeah, but mostly exterior, right? Mostly that's porches and roofs and stuff like that. It's easy to see that you're doing the work. Should you get a permit? Yes. Do people do fine work without permits? I'm sure. But here's the thing. Think about, in your head, answer this question, I'll say it out loud.
Yeah.
The number of people that do work in their homes without pulling permits, and therefore the county has no idea what the true value of that house is because they don't know what the upgrades on the inside are.
Right.
Right? So in some respect, that doesn't become known to us as a community until you sell.
Sell the house.
And then when you sell, that was your point, right? Then your real estate person goes in and says, oh, you've got 3 bedrooms in here. This one said, 2. Like, oh yeah, we converted the attic last year, right? Oh, you got 2 bathrooms. Yeah, we fixed the basement, we put it together, right? I didn't know anybody know about that. So the sweet spot for Old Brooklyn to be in where we are above the interest of investors, but below the 500,000, 400,000 is home values somewhere between 150 and 350, right? That's like the 40, I don't know, that's like the spot where we're not like, you know, ravaged by crummy investors, but we're not outpricing people. Most people that can get a mortgage loan for over 100. Most people don't really get mortgage loans very much anymore for under 100. If you've got high 6s or mid 6s, you're gonna get 130, 140, 150. But those people immediately start looking for a little bit more. That's kind of what people do, is they look a little bit nicer. And so hopefully we can get into that spot, because that'd be the best place for us to live.
the other issue with a permit is if you buy a house from someone who did work without a permit, you have no idea whether the work's any good or not.
You have no
And you
clue.
could buy a can of worms, and then you got issues, and then you're gonna have to pay to get it all fixed.
I bought my
So-
house in 2013, and one of the first things I did was, before I bought it, was I looked up all the permit history. And the only thing they pulled a permit for was the windows, because you can tell from the outside that they're putting in new windows, right? The windows look good, and they were put in well.
Trust me when I say this, I'm an accountant and a CPA by trade.
Okay.
You don't want me doing anything relative to work inside the house. You want me to
So,
get a permit for someone to do it right.
Here-
'Cause
here-
otherwise you could have a whole can of worms if you bought that house.
My lips to God's ears. You can pull a homeowner's permit. You're allowed to work on your own house. It's your house, right? The government doesn't take away your right to work on your house. You can do your own electric, you can do your own gas, you can do your own plumbing. You can do anything in your house. You can pull a homeowner's permit for like next to nothing and just keep it on file forever, I think. Because you're allowed to work on your own house, you don't need to be an expert. But I will never touch my furnace. It's invisible and explosive, and I will pay somebody else who knows what they're doing to handle the gas lines. I'm not messing around with it. So, you know, fire beware. But I wanted to go through this because I wanted to try to get some good information out there, because I know that people kind of freak out when they get those things and they jump to the worst conclusions. But I actually think that, you know, we're on a good trajectory in the neighborhood. If we can just get into that median housing value, like right? Councilman Slife reminds me of this. He's got the highest income neighborhood in Cleveland. The median household income in West Park is the same as the median household income in Cuyahoga County, right? So half the families in Cuyahoga County make more than the average family in West Park, and half make less than the average family in West Park. But we're right below that, right? And I want to get up to that median value too. I want to put us, I think it would be great for us to be smack dab in the middle. That's where we've got the most opportunity for people that want to purchase. But we're a little bit too expensive for the investors to waste time and money in. And I think that's where we want to try to be. So I thought it was good news. Okay?
Good job.
Cool. I guess our Office of Professional Standards not living up to their name. Thank you. I don't need anything else recorded. If you want to record.